you're listening to the wrong podcast. Topics today include kids, kidnappings, and kingpins.
Wrong! It's the wrong podcast, but we'll make it right. Spinning the world in a whole new light. Witty, wild, and a little askew, and the one who's right, it might be you. Oh, it might be you.
Hi, I'm Tim. I'm here to talk about politics, culture, religion, sports, and anything else you're not allowed to talk about in polite company. Issue number 1! Breaking British! I have an affection for anybody who's able to take a little bit of money and turn it into a lot of money. That is a noble skill. We often say they're greedy, but no, there is a skill here. What you do with the money, that might be greedy. But being able to turn a little bit of money into a lot of money is a very good thing. And thus I bring you the story of John Eric Spivey. John Eric Spivey is from the Greater Manchester area in the United Kingdom, not to be confused with Lesser Manchester. And I just have to say, the last name Spivey, that is such a British name. How come we don't have anybody here in the United States named Spivey? We were a British colony, and somehow they didn't export any Spibbies to us? S-P-I-B-Y, Spivey. So, Mr. Spivey, he was a 65-year-old man, and in 2010, he won the lottery. I guess it has to happen at some point to some people, and he won the equivalent of $3.3 million. Now, if you happen to win $3.3 million, you could expect to get $15,000 a year. No, not a year. $15,000 a month in interest for the rest of your life. And if that money was just kept wherever it was, where it was earning interest, your descendants would get $15,000 a month for eternity. So at 65 years old, Mr. Spivey is doing pretty well. He can just sock that money away. His expenses are paid for. He's fine. He's comfortable for the rest of his life, easily. But no, he said, that's not good enough. That is not good enough for me. I'm going to make some money. And he turned that $3.3 million into over $300 million over a 15-year period. Now, how did he do this? Well, he set up a shop in the back of his house. In fact, he had a stable in the back of his house. So I guess he was doing okay that he had a stable on his property. I guess not. You could live out in the boondocks and have a stable and not be rich. Horses aren't just for rich people. I have no idea what the Greater Manchester area is like. He had a stable. That's the point. He converted the stable into a factory. And what he manufactured is something called diazepine. And he set up an illegal drug company making illegal diazepine and selling them on the street for $65 a pill. That's roughly $89 a pill. What's diazepine, you may ask? Well,
diazepam is a medication that slows the nervous system and is approved to treat anxiety disorders, certain seizure disorders, muscle spasms, and alcohol withdrawal. It is also used in the short term to relieve insomnia and can provide sedation for minor surgery or anesthesia.
That sounds like fun. And apparently other people agree, and they're willing to shell out nearly $90 per pill for this stuff. And like I said, he took his $3.3 million and turned it into over $300 million. Amazing. Totally illegal. He should go to prison for the rest of his life. And in fact, that's exactly what's happened to Mr. Spivey. He was arrested, and this has been 15 years, so he is 80 now, maybe 81, and he got 16 years in prison for setting up this drug empire. And this just strikes me that this is the Breaking Bad story. This man didn't need to make this kind of money. He had some justification, I'm sure, at some point, but didn't need to, did it anyways, and I can't wait for the miniseries. Issue number 2! Fresh out! I'm sure you have heard about the Savannah Guthrie story. She is an anchor on NBC's Today Show. Her mother was kidnapped, and the kidnappers are asking for $6 million in Bitcoin to return her mother to her. And I have no idea where the story is right now in this moment. I have no idea where it'll be when I release this episode in the next 24 to 48 hours. It will change, I'm sure. The point of this is that the Savannah Guthrie story is unusual. It's unusual for a couple of reasons. First off, it's very unusual for elderly people to get kidnapped. That's an interesting, strange story. It's very unusual for people to get kidnapped for money, for ransoms. That happens in South America a lot, in Central America a lot. It does not happen in the United States all that often. But what I want to talk about is how unusual it is that we have a true crime story that almost everyone in America now has heard about. That's unusual these days. That doesn't happen anymore. As you might remember, if you are a baby boomer or Gen X or an older millennial, the O.J. Simpson story was a very big deal. And there were always stories like that. And then something happened, and true crime went away. Now, some of you are saying, what are you talking about? True crime went away. True crime is a big business. There's all kinds of people who are really invested in true crime. That is true. But what's happened is that true crime has become a niche. It is a cultural niche. And there are people who are way, way into it. They're all about solving the true murders that are happening. I don't know anybody like this in my own life. There's nobody at all close to me who might be really invested in watching Dateline. I don't know anybody like that, but you might. And those things are a very big deal for a very small group of people now. It used to be these stories would be national headlines. They would dominate the evening news. We'd all know about it. But now, true crime is just a niche thing now. And I think it's because of podcasting and social media. We don't all share the same news source anymore. We can all really hyper focus on the things we're interested in. And now all the true crime people, they can all get together in one little corner of the internet. And it used to be the kind of thing that would cause people to tune into the nightly news. And nobody's watching the nightly news anymore. So they have to talk about other things. And all the true crime people aren't tuning in. So they're focused on other things. And think back to the last major true crime story that you can think of that was a national story. The last one that comes to mind for me was Lacey Peterson. And that's a young mother who was killed here in California. And maybe that wasn't national. Maybe it was just a big story here in California. But that was about 20 years ago. And the next one that might come to mind was the Johnny Depp Amber Heard divorce proceedings. That's kind of, it's not crime, but maybe it is. I don't know. But even that wasn't a true crime thing. That was more a celebrity story. Go ahead, think about which true crime story comes to mind for you. I bet it was a while ago, except in this case of Savannah Guthrie. So that's just interesting. On a slightly different note, but things that have gone away, things that used to be normal for us that have gone away are serial killers. There has been a radical reduction in the number of serial killers. And nobody is exactly sure why. And I don't think it's podcasting. I don't think podcasting is the reason there's fewer serial killers. But I heard somebody make a suggestion that's a pretty good one. And he said that there's fewer serial killers now because we don't use lead paint anymore. As you might know, lead paint is poisonous. It does some weird things to people. And, kids used to eat paint chips, and that would be a big problem. And the suggestion is, because we don't use lead paint anymore, people's minds aren't getting poisoned and causing them to do these sociopathic things at the scale that they used to do it at. I just saw a story today saying how everybody was terrified because there was a serial cat killer in some city somewhere in the country. And yikes, we don't want a serial cat killer. But if that's the kind of story that's making news as opposed to an actual serial killer, fine. I mean, I don't want the cats to die, but this is an improvement. Hey, it's time. What are the rules?
Oh, what are the rules? What are the rules? Don't touch my fries or my garden tools. Oh, what are the rules? Yeah, I got my quirks. Follow them closely and I promise it works.
I had 2 incidents happen with motorcyclists on the freeway, almost in the exact same spot on the freeway, in fact. The first one, it's more common. Well, they're both common, I'm sure, to other people. That's why I'm sharing them with you. First one was, I was in a carpool lane. I needed to get out of the carpool lane. It was busy. It was rush hour. And there wasn't a lot of space for me to move out of the carpool lane. So I started to move. And there was a motorcyclist going down the middle of, between the 2 lanes. There's a name for this, and I don't know what it is. But it's no longer against the law here in California. It's not legal, but it's been decriminalized. Where a motorcyclist at any time, really, it doesn't matter how fast everybody's going. Used to be you could only do this if all the cars were stopped. Now they do it no matter what speed everybody's traveling at. I was going at least 45, maybe faster. And this motorcyclist going down in the middle, in between the carpool lane and the regular lane, comes out of nowhere. And fortunately, I checked my mirror again and saw them at the last moment and didn't destroy their life. That's not cool. Don't do that, motorcyclist. If we're moving, just get into traffic with everybody else. You don't need to go 90. And what was really unusual about this was it was a woman on the motorcycle. You would think that this kind of reckless behavior would totally be that of a young man under 25. It was not in this case. Second one, this is just in general. It's not motorcyclists in particular, but the motorcycle will come up. You'll see. We have these lanes that sometimes you're driving on the freeway, you're in the far right lane, a new lane will appear. There'll be a freeway entrance, and as that entrance merges with the freeway, it will form a new lane to your right. I hope you're all tracking with me. Some of you are driving on the freeway right now. It is about to happen in the next 45 seconds. The new lane is formed on the right, and as you know, you can't cross a lane until there's dashed lines in the paint. And without fail, I'm waiting to get over to that new right lane that's been formed. I want to get over there, and somebody behind me will cross over into that new lane before the dashed lines. And that means, and they start to speed up because they've got this open lane now. And I want to get over there too. So I have to cut them off to move over to the right, even though they changed lanes too early and they were going behind me. We all could have just gone together. People need to wait. The big problem with this is that one time recently, I was in the same situation. I was waiting for the lines to go from solid to dashed. And the minute they did, a motorcyclist behind me had popped out of the lane way earlier, maybe a car or 2 lengths back, and sped up and passed me on the right, just as I was changing lanes. Not cool. Not cool at all. Just wait until the lane's available. I know it's hard to wait. Just wait. Remember, I want to know what's wrong with you.
What's wrong with you?
If you'd like to submit a question, topic, or tell me how I was wrong, you can email me at listen@therewrongpodcast.com or submit a comment at my website, therewrongpodcast.com, and help me spread the wrong message. If you like what you hear, share it with your friends. And remember, subscribing and commenting in your podcast platform totally helps me. You don't have to pay me money. You just have to subscribe and comment. Now it's time for my favorite part of the show. I was wrong.
I was wrong. I was wrong.
Listener Eric responding to my last episode.
Really nice job on the last episode. I especially liked the part about the prick that popped the balloon. That had to have been intentional.
Thank you, sir. I really do appreciate it. And listener Amy also responding to the same episode. She had this to say.
I have to say, your comment about waiting 72 hours did come off as a little uppity, but I think it's really good advice. So how can we make this suggestion to people in a way that they might agree?
So thank you, Amy. I accept that feedback. That I might have been a little school marmish. Those weren't your words. I put those into your mouth. I would say, to answer your question, thank you, by the way. Thank you for saying that what I'm saying is wise. I would say that you just have to watch and see if this is a highly emotional conversation. Are the people, is the point of the conversation people are having about their emotions? Even if they're not using I feel words, is the basic idea their emotions? And if it is, then wisdom is not welcome. Empathy is what people want, not wisdom. And there's another question you could ask, and that is, are they asking you to comment on it? And if they're not asking for your comment or for your advice, then don't share it. And this raises an interesting problem on social media. Occasionally, somebody will say, hey, you don't have to comment, or I'm not looking for a conversation. I just want to let other people know that I feel the same way they do. And that's an interesting thing to say. The problem is that there's a comment field immediately below your post that is in fact asking me to comment. And I get it. I don't have to accept an invitation to every fight on the internet. I totally understand what you're saying. But you also need to recognize that there is a comment field right below what you're saying. So in fact, I am being asked, we are all being asked to comment on what you just said. And that's why I think a lot of people are switching over to sharing stories, because there is no public commentary field. There is no place for discussion. I'm sure many people would turn off comments entirely if they could. And I don't know if that's the best thing for social media, but I'm sure some of you would welcome it. I am glad it doesn't exist, because you have to think about it before you post something. Is somebody going to react to this? Am I bombarding somebody with this thing they don't want to see? And the comment field reminds you, hey, somebody might have something to say to me about this. Do I want to put up with what they have to say? And that had nothing to do with what Amy asked me. That's just a bonus. You're welcome. Bonus time. Issue number 3, Old Mother Hubbard. Hey, reminder for everybody, before I get into this next story, reminder for everybody that I am a pro-natalist. This is a pro-natalist podcast. Pro-natalism doesn't mean I want everybody to be forced to have babies. It just means I want to encourage people to have babies. Babies are very good, no matter the circumstance. And I mean that, no matter the circumstance. We need to be grateful for children, no matter how they've come to us. Children are a good thing. They are a blessing. And I'm such a pro-natalist that I think we should make it free to give birth in the United States. That is contradictory to my economic conservative principles, but I think it's a good idea. I think in long term, it's a good investment. Whatever barriers are keeping people from having babies, let's pull them down. There's another conversation that I'm not going to get into right now about how we could pull down barriers and what actually works. And we're not going to get into it because nothing works. No government has figured out how to encourage people to have babies. Another reminder, it's very important. I am pro-adoption. I am an adoptive parent. I encourage adoption wherever I can. I think it's a truly beautiful thing. People should adopt babies. I say both of those things because I hate surrogacy. In particular, I hate paid surrogacy, commercial surrogacy. I think they're bad. I don't think they're good at all. I think they should be avoided. In fact, I think they should be made illegal. And that sounds radical to some of you. Oh, that's so mean. Don't you see that this is a way to help people who don't have children? Don't you see this is a way to bring children into the world? That's what you want? Yes, I understand what feels like a contradiction. Hopefully, you will be a little bit closer to what I'm saying by the end of this episode when I share a story with you. Stories coming up. First off, what you need to know when I say that I love adoption and I encourage other people to become adoptive parents, you need to know that every adoption brings with it a tragedy. In fact, a tragedy is what caused the adoption to begin with. Something went wrong. A crisis happened. Somebody can't take care of this child. And adoption is beautiful because it fixes a crisis. It brings stability where chaos once existed. The big problem, and almost every adoptive parent will tell you this, regardless of how old the child was when they came into their family, the big problem that adoptive families have to overcome is attachment. Attachment is this idea where you get sticky to other people. You are hopefully sticky to your spouse. Your children are hopefully sticky to you. You are hopefully sticky to your parents and to your siblings. That is emotional attachment, and it is a very good thing, and it's something we all need. And when an adoption has taken place, there has been a crisis that has severed that attachment. And it brings with it, potentially, lifelong emotional struggles to overcome that crisis that happened. It can be overcome, absolutely. You don't need to fear a lack of attachment in a child. It can be overcome, but it takes a lot of hard work. And again, I'll remind you that every adoptive parent, even parents who have a child come into their home and they were there at the hospital where the baby was born, will tell you that attachment is an issue for their children too. The problem with surrogacy is that it intentionally creates a life with the intention of adoption. Adoption isn't the solution to a crisis. Adoption is the goal. And in order to have that adoption take place, you've got to sever an attachment. That's wrong. It creates pain for people. It creates chaos for people. And even in the womb, a child is learning to attach to its mother. Even in the womb, he or she hears his mother's voice. He gets used to his mother's emotions. He's learning to soothe himself based on how the mother interacts with the stress in her own life. And when you hire a surrogate, you take that attachment away from the child with its mother. There is a very popular TV show and novel called The Handmaid's Tale, and it's all about how rich people are going to force women to give birth for them in this dystopian society. Women have no choice about it. They've got to give birth. And if this is happening anywhere in our world and in our culture, it is in surrogacy, particularly in commercial surrogacy. If you have enough money or you find someone poor enough, you are using your economic power to take control of another person's body. Eventually, there's enough money to cause somebody to say, yes, I will say yes to this. I can't say no to this. This is too much money to say no. I need to do this. This is another form of prostitution. It's rich people using their power on poorer people. and taking agency away from women. These women may not choose to give birth in that moment except for the money. And they most likely would not choose to hand that baby over to someone else except for the money. An adoption has to take place in every surrogacy. The only way this works is if the birth mother signs over her rights to that child. And in the United States, there are no laws governing domestic or international surrogacy. 0 laws. Everything is available. There's nobody saying any situation is inappropriate. Everything is appropriate. That's in contrast to our European friends. In almost every single European nation, commercial surrogacy is against the law. There's 3 exceptions. One is Ukraine. Second is Georgia, the Republic of Georgia. And the third is Russia. And even in Russia, international surrogacy is against the law. Only domestic commercial surrogacy is allowed. Now, many of these other countries will have altruistic surrogacy, where you do it for free. But commercial surrogacy is against the law in all of those countries. Now, I have a friend who is also an adoptive parent, and he has 6 children. And they'll go into a restaurant, and he'll, all the kids, and he will be taking their orders, and he'll hear people behind him say, "That's too many kids. That's not fair to those kids." And what you need to know is that he is a foster adoptive parent. He is taking these kids out of foster care. So yes, it is fair to these kids. These kids are in a better situation. And it's a little bit absurd to me to say it's too many kids, particularly for a family that has 6 kids. We had TV shows about people with 20 plus kids. There is a natural limiter on a woman that keeps her from having too many kids. I don't know what the right number is. I don't want any laws about how many kids are too many. Again, I'm pro-natalist. But I'll remind you that Elon Musk has at least 14 baby mamas that we know about. And there might be more. And please don't sue me, Elon. I don't have the exact number, but I believe the number is 14. Maybe it's 14 children you have. My mistake if I'm wrong about how many mothers or children there are. That's nothing. That's nothing compared to a story I'm going to tell you. There is a couple here in California. Their names are Guangjun and Sylvia. They are Chinese immigrants, and they are quite wealthy. And it's unclear if Guangjun and Sylvia are actually married. I believe they are, but it's unclear to me if they actually are. But they are the parents of a young baby. It was a 9-month-old baby who was they took to the hospital, and they took this baby to the hospital because it had head injuries, and the head injuries were severe enough that the Department of Social Services got involved, and they did an investigation. The parents said that this was the baby just fell out of its crib, and the investigation said, no, that's not true. Something else happened here. So they went over to the house where the baby lived along with its parents, and they did an investigation. They didn't see anything wrong. It was a nice, big, beautiful house. There's other kids there. There's several nannies because there's other children in the house. And one of the social workers asked Sylvia, "How many children do you have?" And Sylvia paused, and she looked confused, and she had to pull open her phone, and she opens a spreadsheet and looks at the total of children in the spreadsheet and says 21. There's 21 kids in the house, all under the age of 3. And how they had obtained these children, they were all legally theirs. They adopted all of these children. They paid $45,000 to a surrogate for each one of these children. And the sperm for every child was from Guangjun, and the egg was donated from an egg donor somehow. They purchased the egg, they used in vitro fertilization, and they paid the women $45,000. And the investigators, they were able to find some video cameras in the house. They watched the video. It was clear to them that children were being abused in the home. They had the video evidence. So all 21 children were taken out of the home and put into foster care. Guangjun and Sylvia were given parental visitation rights. They were allowed to see the children. They were allowed to see each child 3 times a week. There's 21 kids, all of them under the age of 3. And so there were many visits going on. And it became clear to the people who were watching the parental visits that Sylvia didn't know these children's names. She had a very hard time knowing which child she was interacting with at any point. And Guangjun just sat there. He had no interaction with the children at all. He did not help Sylvia change diapers or feed. Oh, I failed to mention, Guangjun is 63 and Sylvia is 38. So Guangjun's a 63-year-old man. He's just sitting there for several hours at a time, hoping to get his children back, pointing out that he's not done anything illegal and that it's not illegal to have a large family. And it's not. He has not done anything illegal. But these children they're all placed into foster homes, and it's clear that he and Sylvia are going to have a hard time getting these children back into their home. While this case is going through its motions, 4 more children are born to them by surrogates in other states. So they're up to 24 or 25 children at this point, and there are foster agencies in at least 3 or 4 states involved because these surrogate mothers are all over the country. And there doesn't appear to be an end in sight for them. They've got lots of money. This is what they want to do. The reason Guangjun wants to have all these children is because he wants one of his children to become president of the United States someday. And he's hoping that he's increasing the odds of that happening by having more children. And the craziest thing about this story is that this is nothing. There is another man named Zhu Bo, who is a Chinese billionaire. He's a video game CEO in China. Some people have been worried about how many children he's having born here in the United States through surrogates, and somebody suggested that he's probably had 300 children born. And his representation said, no, that's not true. That's not true at all. He's only had 100 children born. Let's all just pause for a moment and imagine what a child is like who's born to an eccentric billionaire who has very poor social skills and no interest in properly raising a child. What could that child turn out to be like when they become an adult?
Very well. Where do I begin? My father was a relentlessly self-improving boulangerie owner from Belgium with low-grade narcolepsy and a penchant for buggery. My mother was a 15-year-old French prostitute named Chloe with webbed feet. My father would womanize, he would drink, he would make outrageous claims like he invented the question mark. Sometimes he would accuse chestnuts of being lazy, the sort of general malaise that only the genius possess and the insane lament. My childhood was typical. Summers in Rangoon, luge lessons. In the spring, we'd make meat helmets. When I was insolent, I was placed in a burlap bag and beaten with reeds. Pretty standard, really.
The other crazy thing about this story is that many of the surrogates, when they found out what was happening with Guangjun and Sylvia, they were able to connect with one another. It's very difficult for them to find one another, but they created a Facebook group. Somehow they all got together. They started sharing stories. They all, or most of them, wanted to take custody of the children that were born to them, but they cannot. They had signed over their rights. They are no longer legal parents by any measure. They have no legal rights to these children. So the children are not going to come back to them. And the part that blows my mind is that many of these women have chosen to become surrogates again. They see that this didn't go well. They see that that the truth was hidden from them about the parents and about the situation the child was going to be born into. And most of them have said, you know what, I'm going to do it again anyways. This is totally legal. That's what they were told over and over again when they had any questions about the parents and who the children were going to be delivered to. This is totally legal. And I'll remind you, this is all totally legal. There are no laws governing commercial surrogacy, domestically or internationally in the United States. And I'm just going to say it. We need some laws governing this. I know there's a heartbreaking story that could be solved through surrogacy. You know somebody whose heartbreaking story was solved through surrogacy. There's also this other heartbreaking story of 24 kids in foster care who were being abused, who were being neglected because of surrogacy. We need to consider the worst case scenario as well as the best case scenario. And that goes for other things like euthanasia, medical assisted dying. It goes for in vitro fertilization. We need to think about how these things might be abused. And I know some of you are saying, yeah, you could have your law stopping commercial surrogacy, but your law is never going to stop it. If you've got enough money, you can get around it. And that is not the point of a law. In fact, that argument is something I call the defeater. Oh, you'll never stop this thing. You'll never stop marijuana from being used if you have this law against it. You'll never stop drunk driving if you have this law against it. You're absolutely right. We have laws against murder, and murder is still going on. We have laws against kidnapping. Kidnapping is still taking place. Our laws aren't totally created in an effort to stop the activity. Our laws are there to tell everyone how our society will respond if you choose to do this thing. What kind of consequences will come with your actions if you choose to partake in it? But I could be wrong. If you think I am, let me know. Let me know why. I had fun and I hope you did too. Bye-bye.